The night was supposed to celebrate 5 years of love. Instead, he introduced his new fiancée in front of everyone. What he didn't know? The simple wife he thought he outgrew owned the building, owned the company, owned him, and every deal he believed made him powerful. When he tried to humiliate her, she didn't break, she transformed. And in one unforgettable moment, she revealed the empire she built in silence and left him standing in the ruins of his own ego. Because sometimes the quiet ones aren't weak, they're strategic, and tonight, he finally learned who the real architect was.
Welcome to Stagecraft Entertainment, where stories don't just unfold, they command attention. Each audio story is crafted like cinema for the mind, rich with tension, emotion, and truth, celebrating love, identity, and humanity without limits. Lean in and let Stagecraft Entertainment take you inside the story.
For 5 years, Kyle Maxwell treated me like his live-in maid while he built what he liked to call his empire. And tonight, our wedding anniversary, he's planning to introduce his new fiancée to our friends and colleagues. What he doesn't know is simple. I own the building. I own the company. I own the air he breathes and the ground he walks on. And the simple, black wife he underestimated, she just became his worst nightmare. Let me take you back to where this all started. My name is Alana Maxwell, at least that's what my marriage certificate says. To the world that actually matters, I'm Dr. Alana Winslow, but more on that later. 6 years ago, I was finishing my graduate work, focused, determined, spending more time among research notes and sustainability models than at parties. Kyle was charming when I met him, working his way up in the world of finance, telling stories with the polished shine of a man who believed success existed simply because he had declared it. For my part, I'll own that confidence fascinated me back then. Later, I learned that confidence and arrogance are two sides of the same coin, as it were. When Kyle proposed, my career was already blooming. I had patents pending, investors circling, breakthroughs in sustainable architecture that could reshape the way cities were developed. My future was unfolding fast and bright, almost frightening in its momentum. So I made a choice. I wanted to know whether Kyle loved me, the woman, not the storm that was about to become my legacy. I kept my work under my maiden name, compartmentalized, invisible inside legal walls that only the sharpest eyes could see if they were paying attention. I built my own legacy silently, deliberately, all while playing the role of the dutifully supportive wife. So why hide it? Why live like that? Because I grew up watching my mother trust men who saw her as an ATM. I saw how her heart would shatter every time there was an empty withdrawal. I promised myself I would never be loved for the wrong reasons. So I created a series of tests, all of which Kyle failed in spectacular fashion. As my architectural innovations grew into a multi-billion-dollar enterprise, Kyle's mask slipped. My designs became interesting doodles. The board meetings I was actually attending were seen as my little outings. He'd hand me dry cleaning tickets and half-finished grocery lists like I was staff he forgot to pay. At dinner parties, he'd bask in his own importance while I was introduced as the little woman. His friends would smile kindly and ask whether I ever planned to get a real job. The irony is almost art. Kyle believed he financed our life, the house, the travel, the luxury. He never realized I had purchased the house outright, that the company he bragged about working for leased their offices from one of my subsidiaries, that every vacation, every membership, every indulgence was paid for by the empire I was quietly building in the shadows. I watched him. I waited. I observed what he did with the illusion of power. And then, 3 weeks ago, I found the emails and text messages. Her name was Amelia, 26, project manager, blonde, 2 years of conversations, hotel reservations, declarations of love. I read in each text and email. I felt a familiar disappointment settle into my bones. But the betrayal wasn't the sharpest wound. What broke something in me were the words he used about me. She's so painfully uncomplicated. Half the time she doesn't even realize I'm gone. My wife's happy with her little side projects, keeps her busy, makes her feel useful. She's not wired for real ambition. That world would swallow her. That one almost makes me laugh. But then I read the last message, and everything shifts. Relax, baby. I've got something big planned for our anniversary. It's time people finally see us together. Time I upgraded to someone on my level. He wanted to humiliate me, publicly and seemingly on an epic scale. So I sat in the office he thought was just a craft room surrounded by financial statements, legal folders, global project maps, and I made phone calls to my attorneys, my financial officers, the management company running my hotel properties. If this anniversary was going to be unforgettable, it's only right that I contribute to those memories equally. The week before the party was almost comedic. Kyle walked around the house with that faux sympathetic expression, asking if I'd chosen a dress, reminding me to smile. He couldn't wait to perform his empathy. And I, sweet, quiet, unassuming Alana, smiled right back. Because I already knew, the architect he thought he was about to discover the truth of the structure he'd been living in, and none of it belonged to him. On the evening of the party, I wore precisely what Kyle anticipated and looked more like his executive assistant than his wife. Certainly not the type of person who was capable of buying and selling everyone else in the room. As per usual, we arrive with appropriate fanfare and accolades. He loops his arm casually through mine as though I am a prop, a tasteful accessory. "Smile," he murmurs. "It's important to look supportive tonight." Why the hell would he want me to appear supportive? Was he really such a lowlife that seeing his supportive wife's humiliation would make the moment so much sweeter? It was then that I realized what a bastard I had married. Any lingering doubts, had there been any, about his impending evisceration were immediately erased. So I smile because mask-wearing has become a discipline. My reflection in the mirrored pillars actually looks softer than I am. Plain black dress, understated pearls, hair gathered back in a neat chignon, unthreatening, invisible by design. It's a role, not a destiny. So we make our entrance as the featured attendees into the ballroom. As soon as we open the door, that smell hits me, the smell of expensive perfume, ambition, and desperation. I never liked the way this ballroom smells. I'll have to have Cecil, my event coordinator for this property, do something about that tomorrow. For now, the smell is appropriate to the foulness of the upcoming proceedings. The chandeliers drip light across polished marble, and people glide through it like schools of jeweled fish, mouths forming pleasant lies. My anniversary party. 5 years. 5 years of being Kyle's shadow in a world he believes he owns. We move to the podium located in the center of the ballroom, and Kyle prepares to speak into the microphone. When Kyle taps a fork against his champagne flute, the room tilts toward him. His voice carries, warm, practiced, built from years of boardrooms and victories not entirely his. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate Alana's and my 5 years together," he says. And then, "Over the years, I've built a successful career in finance. I've grown and evolved, and I've come to realize that I need a partner who matches my ambition, my drive, my vision for the future. So," he pauses dramatically, "to that end, I'd like to introduce you all to Amelia Ashford, the woman who will be my wife once Alana and I finalize our divorce." The crowd gasps, laughs nervously, recalculates allegiance in real time. A slender blonde woman in silver lame steps forward. She glows like a promise. There are murmurs of surprise and speculation amidst the assembled crowd. Kyle mentions the destruction of our marriage with such ease, almost as if he were simply sharing news about buying a new rental property. "Amelia has graciously consented to be my fiancée," he finishes. I hear the word float through the ballroom and land at my feet like broken glass. For a moment, I simply exist in the shatter. The betrayal, the audacity, the predictability. His hand rests on Amelia's back in that guiding, proprietary way I once mistook for devotion. No one looks at me directly. They sneak glances, curious, waiting for the scene. Kyle clears his throat, then he turns to me and his smile takes on a disingenuous, apologetic tone. Alana, I'm sure you understand. We're just not compatible anymore. Now, I'm prepared to offer you a generous settlement to ensure we're both able to move on to the next chapter with as little fuss as possible. $250,000 in the house. I think that's more than fair for someone with your limited prospects. The house. The son of bitch was offering to allow me to keep my own house, the one I'd paid for with my money in cash. I bit the inside of my cheek to stop myself from laughing. My inner monologue started with, "If you don't go somewhere with that bullshit." But externally, I keep my face carefully blank with just a hint of a smile. Some of Kyle's more vicious friends offer praise for this next chapter in life. His best friend Jackson actually raises his glass and congratulates him on his upgrade to first class. A few attendees have the decency to look uncomfortable, but most just continue on with their own conversations. This was Kyle's world. We all just live in it, right? I set down my champagne glass and turn on my smile. A real smile this time, not the polite ones I'd been wearing all night. "Thank you for finally showing everyone. The real you," I said, my voice carrying clearly across the now silent room. "I want to carefully consider your offer." I gotta say, Cecil's timing is impeccable. Cecil approaches me to offer a dramatic whisper in my ear. "If you'll excuse me, I just need a moment. I'll be right back." I walk past him, past Amelia, who offers a shit-eating smirk like she'd won some prize. Her voice rings out behind me loud enough for everyone to hear. "When you're dead, you should stay down." Hold that thought, sweetie. My pulse slows. Something quiet and vast opens inside me, a cathedral of resolve. I slip out of the ballroom to the private suite upstairs, which is silent, except for the hush of conditioned air. I open the wardrobe where my staff hung the other dress, the real dress. Teal silk, liquid and unapologetic. I let the black sheath puddle to the floor. In the mirror, I meet myself, Dr. Alana Winslow, founder of Hestia Development Group, doctorate in business administration, specialization in urban sustainability, 15 countries, hundreds of projects, thousands of lives shaped by designs that honor the earth instead of conquering it. The woman who built a quiet empire while pretending to be ordinary. My fingers fasten diamond earrings, not gifted, not begged for, earned. The ring I wear is still the one he chose, but tonight it feels smaller than it ever has. When I step back into the ballroom, conversation stutters. Heads turn in synchronized disbelief. Kyle's eyes widen, then narrow, scrambling to realign his narrative. I take the microphone from the podium. My voice sounds calm, grounded. The voice of a woman who commands boardrooms and negotiates billion-dollar development deals. Once again, I echo Kyle's appreciation for attending tonight. Clearly, there has been some confusion tonight. So please allow me to clarify a few things. With a gesture, the screens illuminate. Documents, titles, holdings. Slides prepared long ago for another purpose, adapted with surgical precision. For those of you who are uninformed, let me introduce myself. I'm Dr. Alana Winslow Maxwell, and I am the founder and majority shareholder of Hestia Development Group. Hestia Development was a premier land development organization that spearheads sustainable architecture projects and has active operations in 15 countries. It's kind of a big deal. Kyle begins stuttering, putting the pieces together in real time. You can't be, there's no way. I continue as if he's not having a mini meltdown in front of me. Now, I've had a few minutes to consider your generous offer, Kyle. Thank you for that, by the way, but I must regretfully reject your offer. You see, folks, the home Kyle so generously believes he provided and is allowing me to keep, purchased by me, in cash, before he accepted his first executive bonus. A ripple of whispers flow across the crowd. The firm where he is currently an executive, Luxbridge Capital, is majority-controlled through one of my investment subsidiaries. Ultimately, I sign off on his performance appraisals. Kyle swallows. The color drains from his face until he matches the table linens. "And Amelia, dear," I continue, my tone measured, not cruel, just true. "I absolutely don't want to forget about your contributions tonight. You work for a project management agency I acquired 6 weeks ago. I conducted an audit of your expense reports over the last 6 months. It appears that company resources were used to book private suites, arrange off-site meetings. and charge various meals that aren't attached to any existing clients. Amelia appears unable to swallow past the very large lump in her throat. You are terminated, effective immediately. I pause for dramatic effect and look directly into her stunned eyes. When you're dead, stay down. The room inhales sharply. I glance at Kyle, a man suddenly small in a suit tailored for a different reality. Kyle's hands tremble, but he forces a smile, the kind men wear when they think they've found a loophole. We had an agreement, he says. The prenup protects me. You can't just take everything. I hold his gaze. I'm not taking anything, Kyle. I never needed to. He shakes his head, desperate. No, you don't understand. My salary, my bonuses, my stock options, they're shielded, ironclad. Yes, I say quietly. They are. For a second, relief washes over him, pathetic, almost tender. He really believes he's winning something. But that document, I continue, also states that anything I owned prior to the marriage remains exclusively mine. Any assets created through enterprises legally separated from you remain exclusively mine. Any subsidiaries formed under those enterprises remain exclusively mine. And every property tied to Hestia's portfolio belongs to you. He finishes, the words scraping out of him. And always did. He swallows. But the house, the cars, the travel accounts, the credit lines? All tied to my companies, I say. Not yours. You asked me to sign the prenup because you thought my name was the liability. I pause, letting the realization sit. In reality, Kyle, you were. His jaw tightens. So what do I get? What you came into the marriage with, I reply. Your clothes? Your personal accounts? The condo you sold to buy your first sports car? That was your decision. His breath shudders. You planned this. No, I say softly. I protected myself. You insisted on that prenup, I remind him gently, to protect what was yours. And it does. And only that. His future collapses quietly behind his eyes. Mortgages he cannot afford. Networks that now understand how little leverage he truly had. The dawning awareness that empires built on ego cannot withstand the truth. This party is paid in full, I say to the crowd. Enjoy the evening. I place the microphone back onto the stand as if returning a scalpel after a successful surgery. No theatrics, no revenge speech, just the precise recitation of facts. I walk through the ballroom, past the stunned donors, the trembling interns, the executives reevaluating alliances, past the husband who never thought to ask who I was beyond what I could provide. Outside, the city exhales, warm and alive beneath the Zenith Hotel, another asset in my portfolio, gleaming with quiet pride. The night air touches my shoulders like blessing. For years, Kyle believed he was the architect, designing our lives, our status, our direction. He never realized he was simply a tenant in a structure I had already built. And tonight, he finally sees it. He was never the architect of our world. He was only the architect of his own destruction. I step into the waiting car. The door closes softly, and for the first time in a decade, I am no longer pretending. If you enjoyed watching Kyle get his just reward, smash that like button and subscribe for more stories of people getting their due. Drop a comment below and tell me, what would you have said to Kyle in the moment? Would you have been as calm as I was, or would you have gone scorched earth well before the party? It's important to never underestimate the quiet ones. Quiet doesn't always mean simple. It can also mean strategic. See you in the next story.
Roman held the meeting in the conference room no one liked using. Too much glass, too much sky, too easy to imagine falling. The table stretched between us like a negotiation line, polished, immovable, a battlefield disguised in walnut veneer. The men seated there weren't soldiers today. They wore tailored suits and careful faces. Nico sat third from the left, close enough to feel involved, not close enough to seem central, intentional. Roman didn't sit immediately. He moved, unhurried, collected, around the far end of the table, letting silence expand long enough to remind everyone in the room whose building this was. I took my spot against the wall, not at the table, not one of them. Watching, every entrance, every angle, every hand that hovered too long near a pocket, every throat swallow, every micro-expression that flickered and died. Roman finally spoke. Somebody, he said quietly, sold us out. No one shifted. Good men don't shift. Guilty ones know better. He clasped his hands loosely in front of him, calm, lethal. I'm not asking for confessions, he continued. If I wanted those, you'd be in different chairs. I just want clarity. A ripple of forced relaxation passed through the room. Men exhaled, shoulders dropped slightly. Not Nico. Nico smiled, not wide, not smug, just enough, like he'd figured out the math and accepted where he landed. I studied him, pulse visible in his neck, steady. Eyes direct, but slightly over-focused. Breathing, too controlled. Counting. He was rehearsing calm. Roman slid a folder onto the table and opened it. 3 weeks ago, he said, a warehouse route leaked, one only 5 of you had access to. He didn't look at any of them. He looked at me, just long enough to include me in what came next. I felt the shift. He wasn't lecturing, he was laying a trap. We cross-referenced financial hits, burner purchases, location pings, and internal messages. We narrowed it. Tension thickened. Even the air vents seemed to pause. Roman's voice softened, which with him was always more dangerous. But I'm not interested in math. He tapped the table lightly. I'm interested in tells. Heads turned toward me now. Slowly. Uneasy. I pushed off the wall, took my time crossing to the monitor. I pulled up the still image I'd shown Roman the night the truth first clicked. The security footage. 2:13 a.m. Nico entering the warehouse. I enlarged it. Look here, I said. Not accusing. Clinical. Nico didn't flinch, which was the first flinch. He checks over his shoulder, one of the men said. Everyone checks, I replied. That's survival, but watch the order. I ran the footage again. Door, corner camera, left blind spot, then over the shoulder. He scans like someone who knows where the lenses are, I continued. Not someone guessing. Someone who's seen the layout. Recently. A murmur moved across the table. I clicked again. Pulled up the second clip. Valdez muscle arriving exactly 3 minutes later. Same path, same blind spots, same look back. Only once. They trusted the path, I said softly. He didn't. He knew where it could fail them. That means he wasn't meeting them for the first time that night. My gaze went to Nico. He had stopped blinking. Roman noticed. He always noticed. I had your files reviewed, I added, turning the knife a degree at a time. All of you. 11 of you updated badges 2 months ago when we changed scanners. 1 didn't. A beat, silence. I let it land. Because he already had access. Nico leaned back slowly. Too slow, trying not to escalate, trying to appear insulted rather than cornered. You're reaching, he said lightly. Security footage and timing, that's pattern, I cut in gently. And people don't betray who they hate. They betray who they feel entitled to. Something flickered across Roman's face. Memory, pain. I kept going. The fake shipment, the one that never existed, I asked. You didn't question it, Nico. You approved it faster than any of the others. Faster than protocol allows. I slid a printout across the table toward him. 2 signatures, too close together. He stared at it a second longer than a clean conscience would have required. Then he smiled again. Wrong time. It was busy. Mistakes happen. I tilted my head, and yet the mistake always benefits the same side. A muscle feathered in his jaw. There. That was the tell. Not the footage, not the paperwork, not the timing. The moment he stopped playing cooperative cousin and started calculating exit routes,